Hey everyone, in this video I'm going to show you all how to switch your resolutions and frame rates on the Castle Brave 7 action camera. Now it may seem strange to you all that you're looking at my computer's desktop, but before I proceed with showing you how to change the frame rates and resolutions, I simply want to show you this file formatting of the Castle Brave 7. Okay, so I'm going to move the mouse pointer down here and click the File Explorer icon here on my taskbar. And I'm going to move the mouse pointer to the left and click USB drive D here. I've already made a couple test recordings with my Castle Brave 7 action camera, and I wanted to show you this interesting fact. Up here you can see the AMBA folder. That's the folder which contains my video clip. So I'll double click that now. Now that might be slightly different on your camera because of the firmware version, maybe slightly different on yours, the soft version as a Castle puts it, but maybe slightly different on your camera. But nonetheless, I'm sure you'll find it on the drive. I ejected the card off camera and put it in the card reader and connected it to my PC. But anyway, that's the AMBA folder, and here's the Castle folder. I'm going to double click that. And perfect. Here are the two clips. Now you can see something really interesting here. You can see that the clips have basically same name, except the one on the right there has an AB in its name. Okay, that's a lower resolution clip. A Castle always makes a copy when recording. Okay, well, I should say the Castle Brave 7 action camera. I can't speak for all of them, but the Castle Brave 7 action camera makes a second copy in a lower resolution. I'll show you here. I'll click the first one on the left. Pardon me. I'll click the first one on the left. Now I'm going to secondary click it. I'm going to move the mouse pointer down and click Show More Options. Click Properties. Now I'm going to click Details here. And you can see it's 3840 by 2160 width and height. Now that's a 4K resolution. That's 4K. And the frame rate is 30 frames a second. Okay. Now the clip on the right is the exact same video recording. It's just that it's a lower resolution copy, which was placed on the camera by the Castle Brave 7 action camera. Obviously, it recorded the second copy. So I'm going to secondary click it. Click it now, on secondary click it, I should say. Okay, and I'm going to move the mouse pointer down and click Show More Options. I'll click Properties there. Click Details, and you can see 640 by 360 at 30 frames a second. It's the exact same clip as the one on the left, but it's a lower resolution. That's the way the Castle Brave 7 action camera is designed and engineered. It's engineered that a second copy be placed at a lower resolution. Also, you may find that if you film really long video recordings, such as a parade, you may notice that the clips may split into pieces. Like it may split into pieces and would have to be put back together in an editor. And the same would no doubt go for the lower resolution clips, okay? But nonetheless, you can put them back together in a video editor, okay? If the Castle, pardon me, you can put them back together in a video editor, such as Movavi video editor. If the Castle Brave 7 action camera splits them into pieces, if it's a really long clip, you'll find that sometimes. And of course, also these are MP4 clips. I'm going to secondary click it, the one on the left here. Click Properties, and there you can see MP4 for the one on the left. The one on the right here, I'm going to click it, Show More Options, click Properties, and you can see it's an MP4 file at a much lower resolution. But you can see that that's the AB file there, which is the lower resolution. Okay, now before I move any further on and begin showing you guys how to change the frame rates and resolutions, I just want to watch this clip with you. I want to watch the lower resolution clip with you. But first I'm going to show you something. It's better to copy it to the C drive. It doesn't play very well from the cards. So I'm going to copy it out. I'm just going to minimize the window here and place it on my desktop. Paste here. And there it is. How about we just watch it now? I'll double click it so we can watch it now. Okay, this is just a test video I'm recording here. just to show you all that the Castle Brave 7 action camera makes a second copy of your recording in the folder. It makes a lower resolution copy, so you have a backup copy. And as I say a lot of the time, you should always try to make a test recording before you start recording your project to make sure your audio is working, making sure everything's fine, your resolution and audio are working fine. Okay, those are some good guidelines to go by. I'm going to close the media player window there now. Okay. You can see now it's currently set to 4K 30 frames a second. Okay, but I'm simply going to swipe up to the menu. Now you can see their resolution, okay, and you can see it's currently set to 4K 30 frames a second. Okay, so I'm now going to tap that. Okay, as I said in an earlier video, you can notice that the screen can be somewhat unresponsive. Takes a little bit of patience, you might have to tap it a couple times or use your opposite hand, but you can see up there in the upper right, you can see 16:9 is selected, so we'll tap that just to show you. Now it's 4:3, so we have at that aspect ratio, we only have 1920 by 1440 resolution, okay? And we have the option of 60 frames a second right now. That's what's, I guess, the default. So I'm going to press that now. And you can see I can swipe through, and we only have two options for that resolution. We have 60 frames a second or 30 frames a second. Okay, perfect. Now I'm going to tap that aspect ratio in the upper right again. Typically today you'd use 16:9 mostly. And tap it again, you can see it's back at 4K 30 frames a second. In 4K we have, I'm going to tap the 30 frames there. Now the frames are turned blue, see that? And I'm going to swipe through, and you can see we only have access to 30 frames a second in 4K. Okay. Alright, so I'm going to tap 4K, and we can see we can go through our resolutions. We have 2.7. We can't use 1440 here because this is 16:9 aspect ratio. You can see we have 1080, 720, okay, 2.7, K, and 4K is 30 frames a second, 16:9. But okay, so 2.7K, let's tap the frame rates now. And you can see we only have 30 frames a second. The rest are grayed out. Let's go back to our resolution. I'm going to tap the resolution. And of course, we've already gone through 1440. I'm going to tap 1080p there. And I'll tap the frame rates. They're on the right. You see that the frame rates are now blue. And I can go through the frame rates. What do we have access to? We have 120, 60, and 30. Oh, pardon me, that was 90 frames a second. We don't have that. 30 frames a second. Okay, so there you go. That's the frame rates in 1080 resolution. Tap the resolution again. Okay, and we have 720p. And we have, let's tap the frame rates there on the right. Okay. And what frame rates do we have? We have 240, 120, and that's the ones we have access to, 120 frames a second. And that's about it for 720. We have the choice of 240 and 120. 20 frames a second and 720. Okay. Perfect. Now, okay, now that I went through all that, the setting the frame rates and resolutions on the Castle Brave 7 action camera, I'm going to show you now there's even a simpler method to do it. You see that 1080p 30 there in the bottom center of the screen? I'm going to tap that now. Okay. And you can see video resolution. Perfect. And I can go through those. Alright. We can see I can swipe towards the right, and we have 720p 120 frames a second. And you see up in the upper right corner there's a icon there. That's the image stabilization icon. I could press that and it would turn blue if I could turn on image stabilization, but it's not available in this frame rate and resolution, okay? So I can keep swiping towards the left. Okay, here we have 720, 240 frames a second. Again, I don't have access to the image stabilization. 1920 by 1080, 30 frames a second. Now I can turn on the image stabilization. I just tap the image stabilization icon there in the upper right of the screen. You can see it's turned blue now. I hope you all can see that. You can see it's blue, and of course I can turn it off again by tapping it again. And you can see it's white now. Swipe to the left some more. You can see now we have 1920 by 1080p there. That's 1080p, 60 frames a second. Of course I can turn on the image stabilization. Tap that icon in the upper right there. Now it's electronically stabilized. Okay. Of course now we have 1080p, 120 frames a second. We don't have image stabilization for that. 1440p. Oh, sorry, swipe right there, 1440. 30 frames a second, see 1440p, 30 frames a second. Of course we have image stabilization for that as well. I can tap the icon in the upper right there. 1440, 60 frames a second. You can see we still have the image stabilization, it's still blue. I can now keep swiping left. 2.7K at 30 frames a second, and of course we have access to image stabilization. The image stabilization is blue there in the upper right corner. 4K, 30 frames a second. Of course we can turn on the image stabilization. Alright, and of course to turn off the image stabilization I'll just tap it again. You can see it's turned white, it's off now. Perfect. Now I'm going to simply swipe down. Since my camcorder, since my Castle Brave 7 action camera here is mounted on a tripod, I can turn off the image stabilization. Now obviously when the camera is mounted on a tripod, it really is a good idea to turn off the image stabilization. But if you're holding it in your hand, or even if you're holding it on a handheld tripod, it's a good idea to make sure that the image stabilization's on. Make sure you turn on the electronic image stabilization. Okay, and also I would also kind of recommend, you probably should always make a test recording, but if you have any questions, you can feel free to ask them in the comment section below. Thank you all very much for watching, and thank you very much for your time.